In this section, we are going to see that how ANOVA computation can be done on Microsoft Excel. And for that purpose, we are going to take the example of the mean masses of starlings sampled from 4 different roosting places. So this is the same example that we solved during the exercise of one-way ANOVA. So we are going to use the same example here, and we see that whether the results are going to be the same or no, right? So in this case, the nominal variable is the roosting places, right? And which are also known as the samples. So there are 4 categories in the nominal variable. Nominal variable is only one, right? The nominal variable is the roosting places. And there are 4 categories or 4 samples into the nominal variable, which are different roosting places. This is red bead, tree, large building with ledgers, and cliff, right? So this is our nominal variable. And what is our measurement variable? It is the mass, right? Mass of starlings is our measurement or our response variable. These are the observations that we have, and these are 10 observations from each of the samples. The total number of observations are 40. The question is there any difference in mean masses of starlings between different roosting places? And how we are going to proceed further, we are going to state the null hypothesis to answer this question. And the null hypothesis is there is no difference in the mean mass of starlings between different roosting places. And the alternate hypothesis is the mean mass of starlings of at least one roosting place is significantly different. We can also say that the mean mass of starlings of different roosting places are significantly different, right? So that's how we can state our alternative hypothesis in another way as well. So starting with the Excel workbook, so you have to open up your Excel workbook and you have to put your observations into Excel. So these observations, they are put into the columns, right? The observations are presented in columns according to samples. Now what we have to do next is we have to press the data analysis function tab. So here we have a pop-up window, and this window shows all the statistical tests that can be performed under the data analysis function tab of Microsoft Excel. And we have to find out the test that we want to perform. And because this is ANOVA, so this is the first test that is mentioned into this list. So we can see that there are 3 types of ANOVA that are mentioned here. The ANOVA for the single factor, ANOVA for 2-factor with replication, and ANOVA 2-factor without replication. So what type of ANOVA are we talking about? Are we talking about a single factor ANOVA or the 2-factor ANOVA? We are talking about the single factor ANOVA because the nominal variable is only 1, right? So we are going to select our desired test, which is ANOVA for the single factor in this case. We press OK, or we can double click the name of the test, and we will have another window popped up. So this window is for the input of your values and input of your test conditions. So here you can see that this is the box for the input of ranges. So what is the input range? These are the observations in your 4 samples. And then you can see that there is an option that the values are, or the samples, they are arranged or they are grouped by columns or by rows. So you have a flexibility here. So here I have arranged the observations in columns, but you can arrange the observations into rows as well, and then you press the option rows. So by default into this window, the option of columns is pressed. But if this is not the case, if your observations are listed as rows, that your samples are presented in rows instead of columns, then you can press the other option of rows. Then we have the alpha level, which is the level of significance that we are going to use. So the minimum level of significance that we should use is 0.05, and by default this one is mentioned here, right? So this is our alpha level. And then we have the output options. So these are the options for the output range. Now the first step is that we have to select the observations, and for that purpose we have to place our cursor into the input range, and then we have to select the observations, right? Now in the next step we have to select the output range, that where do we want to have our output. We want to have our output into the cell of the same sheet, or into a new worksheet, or into a new workbook, right? So we have these three options here. Now we want to have our output into the same sheet, and for that purpose we have to place the cursor here for the cell, for the selection of cell, and this is the cell that we select. And here is the output. So we press OK and we get the output. So when we expand the output, the columns of the output, we can see that we are given two tables, right? The first table is about the summary of descriptive statistics, and the other table is about the ANOVA results. So here you can see that in the summary table, the groups are given column 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the count, which is the number of observations in each of these columns, which was same in this case, and then the sum of observations is given. So this is 836, which is summation x1, then 794, which is summation x2, then 786, which is summation x3, and then 754, which is summation x4. Then are the mean values of the individual columns. So this is 83.6 for the sample number 1, 79.4 for sample number 2, 78.6 for sample number 3, and 75.4 for sample number 4. Then we have the individual variances. So individual variances are 16.2667 for sample number 1, 6.2667 for sample number 2, 10.933 for sample number 3, and 17.1556 for sample number 4. So this is the descriptive statistics. This is the summary of the observations that we have. Then is the result table of ANOVA. So the source of variation are between groups and within groups and the total, right? And the total variability is the sum of between samples variability and within samples variability. So the between groups variability, the sum of squares for in this case is 341.9. The sum of squares within in this case is 455.6. The sum of squares total is 797.5, which is actually the sum of these two. And then the degree of freedom for between groups is 3, right? Why it is 3 here? Because the total number of groups are 4, so degree of freedom is a minus 4. A is the number of groups that we have, or the number of samples that we have. So in this case we have 4, so this is 3. And then the degree of freedom 36. And how this within groups degree of freedom calculated, right? So this within groups degree of freedom is calculated by subtracting the number of samples by the total number of observations. So the total number of observations are 40 and the number of samples are 4, so 40 minus 4 is 36. And what is the total degree of freedom? This is the total number of observations minus 1. So this is the degree of observations for the whole experiment. Then we have the MS, which is the mean sum of squares, which is actually the variance. So between groups variance is 113.9667 and between groups variance is 12.6556. Then we have the F value, which is the variance ratio, which is the ratio of between groups and within groups variance. And this is 9.005268. Then we have the P value. So this is the direct P value that we have. So we don't have to compare the calculated F value with the tabled F value in this case. And we directly have the P value, and we can see that this P value is 0.000139, which is less than 0.05. It is also less than 0.01, and it is also less than 0.001. So our result seems to be very highly significant. And the critical value of F is also given, which is 2.87 at the probability level of 0.05, because remember in the input window we had selected the alpha level of 0.05, but you can select 0.01 or 0.001 as well. So here we have the result output when we compute ANOVA on Microsoft Excel. And you can see that this is the same result or no. Let's compare it. So these are the same results as we calculated on paper, right? So this is the table that I copied from the exercise when we solved it on paper. So this is the same values. A null hypothesis is rejected, and the result is the difference in mean mass of starlings from 4 different roosting places is very highly significant. So this is how we can do the ANOVA computation on Microsoft Excel, and you can see that once you have understood the concepts behind ANOVA, the computation of ANOVA is no big deal, right? There are many people who are confused by the ANOVA or who are scared of doing ANOVA, but ANOVA is nothing if you have your proper research design, if you have proper experimental design, and if you know the concept. Therefore, this course is important because it gives you the concepts for using different types of tests under different situations. So Microsoft Excel is there. Anyone can do the test over there, but unless and until you know that what are your inputs going to be and how do you interpret your output. So unless and until you have this information, this software or any other software is of no use. So that is why you need to have the basic information of statistics. So this is all for today's lecture, and see you in the next one.